Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Profiling Evil. Can you believe we've done 2 lives in a row? I don't know that I've ever done that. It's great to see you starting to come in, and I want to just shout out to a few of you, especially Dr. Gunsmith, I think over in the UK, who decided to stay up even longer. So thank you so much. Plus, it looks like we got the Canadians coming in with Sandy and Lady let's see, no, with Lady Heath, Lady Heather's Lair. I'm sorry, that's a tough one for me. Got New Jersey here. We got South Carolina here, North Carolina. It's great to see y'all. So let's get right down to brass tacks because a lot's been happening. I actually ran into some buddies from the Oklahoma Police Department today that I know and asked them to make sure I had pronounced the names on Okmulgee. And we're going to talk about the 4 missing men. It's kind of weird. They're missing 4 men in Okmulgee, and the police department found 4 men in the river in Okmulgee. Seems like it solves a problem, but nobody's saying that it's the 4 men. Nobody's willing to say that they know it's them. So I don't know. Maybe in Okmulgee they have lots of groups of 4 that go missing. But anyway, we're gonna get going here, and I'm gonna try to read some of these comments coming in as I do so. Looks like we got Diana Jane from Texas, Independent Thinker from Maryland, Lisa Johnson from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So Lisa, we're going to need you to weigh in on a few things as we talk about Okmulgee, because it's just like 40 miles north of you, isn't it? Or south from you. And by the way, I work in geography. Robin's Review from Texas. Dyson's Crazy Adventures, Half Rudder. And I did see, I wanted to shout out especially to, let's see. Now I can't find it, but let's get into it. So I need you to weigh in and let me know, because we got 2 directions we're going to go tonight. We're going to try to move quickly and get this thing done. You want to talk about the 4 missing men from Okmulgee, or do you want to talk about the serial killer in Stockton first? And I'm going to look for a couple of comments, and whoever I hear the 3 of you say the same thing, then that's the one we're going to start with, because I'm teed up ready to do either one of them. So Heather's saying Stockton. Let's see here. We got missing men, 2 missing men, 3 missing men. Let's see. No, wait, I'm sorry. I got out of order there. So got Stockton and 4 men, Oklahoma. So the 4 men there. All right, we're going to start off with the 4 missing men from Okmulgee. And what I did is I actually didn't think I was going to do a live tonight. Again, I'm still here in Dallas. And so I recorded something a couple of days ago. Actually, it would have been yesterday morning after they found the bodies. But that's what we're gonna work from here. So I've got to bring that in. We're gonna start. We'll talk about that, and then we'll periodically chat. So here we go. Well, 4 men left on bicycles Sunday night, and by Monday, their families were reporting them missing. They remained missing for 5 days until a passerby saw something suspicious in a shallow creek that was less than 3 miles from the last place they were seen. Nobody's saying the obvious, and everybody's waiting for the medical examiner to identify the Okmulgee 4. Was this a murder or just some bizarre accident? Well, thanks for joining us here on Profiling Evil. I'm dialing in again from Dallas, Texas, down here for the Chiefs meetings with the International Chiefs of Police. I'm looking into this case because you asked for it, folks. In fact, the request came from a Profiling Evil member named Chris, who reached out to me through the evidence room. You can find that at profilingevil.com. So thanks a lot, Chris, and to all of you who are wondering how to get cases submitted, this is the model. Follow Chris's example, because that's the way I get most of the cases that I look into, if it's something that I'm not seeing and something that's not pressing in the news. And for some reason, folks, this case hasn't been big news, but I believe it's going to be one of the biggest news stories of October 2022. The city of Okmulgee is located in Oklahoma. It's about 40 miles south of Tulsa. The name comes from the Muskogee word Okmulgee. That means boiling waters. And boy, oh boy, the waters were boiling this week. Now hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you're ringing the bell and do all of that so you get notifications. But let's look into the Okmulgee 4. It's a name I came up with. Don't know why. I should have probably said the Oklahoma 4. So much easier to say. Now, just a week ago, I didn't even know that the community of Okmulgee existed. And I didn't know there were 11,800 residents there. Now, but I do remember the Muskogee Native Americans from history classes when I was in high school. I think I even remembered that they were in the Midwest, but it wasn't until I dug into this story that I learned more about them and about this area. And according to most accounts I found online, the information that we're going to be talking about is stuff that's publicly available. It starts out with Mark Chastain and his brother Billy Chastain. They left their home on the west side of town with their buddies Alex Stevens and Mike Sparks. Now, early reports suggest they were just going for a bike ride on their bicycles, so not confused with motorbikes. Now, these aren't just some pack of prepubescent boys that are out goofing off. These are 30-year-old plus men. So my first question becomes, why are they riding bikes? It remains a question in my mind. I haven't been able to find out anything that suggests that these men were necessarily into cycling. I think about this. You know, that group of people who they're wearing the tight shorts and the colorful biking outfits, and they're riding up and down the road on really expensive road bikes or the off-road bikes, and they do it sometimes competitively. I say this because the media reports are suggesting that these men made a couple of interesting stops along the way. Primarily, they stopped at some salvage yards and a gas station. Now, this is the cop in me, and I'm not saying this to indict these men. I don't know them. I don't know who they are, their personalities, their backgrounds. I'm just looking at evidence, and I'm just basing my findings on what I've been able to uncover. I don't know what they did for a living, and I hope that if you do, you can send more information about this case. Again, I don't know their standard of living, whether they had access to vehicles or bicycles were the only way they got around. But here's what I find curious. I find it curious that they chose to go to two different salvage yards that Sunday night and Monday morning. This was just before and at the time they disappeared. So my first question has to be, why on earth are they doing this? Why was the salvage yard a location they were going to? I mean, these things probably aren't open on a Sunday night unless maybe a the next question, is it possible that one a vehicle towed there the day before or that day, and they needed to get into the lot to somehow recover something out of the vehicle, not knowing exactly which of those 2 yards that it went to? Or there might be other reasons. I mean, there are so many interesting angles to this simple fact that they stopped at 2 salvage yards. I think this really is part of the mystery, and I don't know if others are going to be talking about it. Not 1 salvage yard, but 2, and it makes me wonder, Were they looking for a part off of a vehicle? I mean, you see things like catalytic converters being stolen and resold, and they're making a lot of money off of those. Or were they looking for a specific part, but they didn't have the money to buy it? And again, I'm not indicting these people. I'm not suggesting. I'm just coming up with theories of what might potentially be going on. So are they the kind of guys that rather than pay for something are breaking into a salvage yard at the late hour of the night under the concealment of darkness? It wouldn't be the first time that I've seen some bicycle cover large amounts of space, big distances of ground, in order to quietly move around from place to place. It's a way to have transportation that's not only quiet, but easy to conceal. Now, again, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, and I don't want to suggest in any way that these men were up to no good when they were out riding their bikes in the middle of the night. But something was going on. There was some reason that they went out, and some reason, if the evidence is accurate that's been reported, that they made the stops getting from point A to wherever point B was. Again, was it because these guys were into recreational riding? Were they just out for a nice evening ride? Or was there something far more interesting going on? But let's talk about facts as we know them. We know they left the residence on Sunday riding their bicycles. Now, media reports in the press conference revealed that they were seen in several different locations. And we've talked about eyewitness accounts before and how dicey those can be, but it sounds like law enforcement has more than just eyewitness accounts. They have forensics from the mobile devices of at least 2 of those 4 men. Now, I've even heard a suggestion that there might have been 6 men that were out riding, but the chief keeps going back and saying 4, so I'm sticking with 4. You might find that that's different. Now, here's what we do know as well. Somebody saw them, or forensics saw them, at a salvage yard on the west side of Okmulgee. Another sighting put them just a short distance to the east, just a short time later, near the YMCA in Okmulgee. And then phone forensics placed the men, or at least their mobile device, just east of the YMCA on Highway 75. Now, from there, forensics show that they traveled southbound and stopped at Murphy's gas station before they jumped back on and went further south to another salvage yard that was in a place called Schulter, Oklahoma. It was there that the last forensic ping was recovered off of their mobile device. So either the battery went dead or it was manually turned off. But the last time that mobile phone was heard was there. The last location that their device, and consequently and most likely they, were last seen. Now, as for the following week, local police, backed up by regional task forces, the Oklahoma Bureau of Investigations, and other agencies, started looking for the missing men. The police chief then got on local social media channels and reported on Friday, just yesterday, that there was a passerby who noticed something suspicious in a river called the Deep Fork River. It's about 3 miles south of the last place that they were seen leaving, that home up in town. Responding officers went to the Deep Fork River and discovered what appeared to be human remains. Now, they sealed off the area and they began a recovery mission that went into the late night, early morning hours, collecting evidence and the bodies. Let's listen to the chief's news conference that night. I think you'll be interested in some things that came out in that, and listen closely to the questions that were asked.
At around 13:49 hours this afternoon, dispatch received a report of suspicious items in the area of the bridge that goes across Sharp Road, which is located southwest of Okmulgee. Officers responded and discovered what appears to be multiple human remains in the river. Multiple agencies are responding and will work to begin the recovery process. This process will take time, and currently we have more questions than answers. The families of Mark Chastain, Billy Chastain, Mike Sparks, and Alex Stevens have been notified of the discovery. At this time, we cannot make an identification, but out of respect, we let the families know before it was officially announced. If it turns out that these 4 missing men are the remains in the river, then the focus of our investigation will shift from finding them to what happened to them. If it is determined it is not them, then we will have a separate investigation. That is the conclusion of my statement, and I will answer questions if you have any.
How much human remains have you found?
I can tell you that there are multiple, but I can't see everything, and all of it is in the river itself. So until we have searched the entire area and got everything that we can see out and made sure there's nothing else, I can't give you a definitive answer. But there are multiple objects in the water that appear to be human remains.
Like bodies or parts?
Well, I can't see everything. There is definitely what appears to be body parts protruding from the water. I can't tell you what's under the water.
Are they in a vehicle or?
No.
And do we have a team out there right now trying to retrieve those?
There are multiple agencies on scene right now that will begin by documenting the scene by aerial footage. They will photograph the scene. They will approach each object individually, photograph it close up, and then start the recovery process.
And are those agencies OSBI, FBI?
The District 25 Violent Crime Task Force is on scene and is leading the investigation, and 8 officers from the Okmulgee Police Department, Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office, and the District Attorney's Office, as well as some officers from Light Horse Police are out there. OSBI has provided 2 crime scene agents, and the medical examiner's forensic anthropologist is on their way and may be on scene by now.
And how are these parts discovered?
I beg your pardon?
How are these parts
A
discovered?
passerby saw something that looked suspicious in the water and called dispatch.
Is this in any way related to any of the locations that family believed that they had previously been seen?
I am not aware of this particular location being mentioned by family. There are multiple locations that the family did mention. I'm not aware of this being one of them.
Any injuries visible on the remains,
I-
like gunshots?
I can't tell.
And it was just the passerby that indicated these might be human remains?
I have not talked to that individual. My understanding is the passerby saw something in the water that he thought was suspicious and felt compelled to report it.
So as of right now, the bodies have not yet been recovered from the body of water?
No, they are still in the river. And they will be in the river for some time. It'll take some time to do the recovery. We have to be very, very meticulous.
Do we know if the passerby happened to know any of the family members or potentially the people whose remains these might belong to?
I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question.
You've said this entire time you don't say there's foul play involved until you have evidence. Is this evidence of foul play?
This is what I would that there's potential involved. But I need to be clear. We don't know that this is our missing men yet. So, I want to make sure that I'm clear about that. Until we do, I can't tell you that they met with foul play.
Are the remains in close proximity to one another?
Probably a maximum of 75 yards total.
And I know you said it was hard for you to see everything, but does it seem like it's multiple people remains? More than one person?
Yes.
Are they clothed?
It's hard to tell. I think so.
Does it seem like 4 people to you?
I can't see enough of it to tell you for sure.
Any sign of the bicycles where the men were last seen?
I was out there for a fair length of time.
For discovery, did you all find anything on the surveillance footage you were going through today?
We've been going through surveillance video for multiple days, and as I'm sure already know, that's a very, very tedious process. and we did not find any images of our missing men on any of the surveillance we've gone through up to now.
Was this an area that you guys were considering searching prior to this?
All of the information that we had up to this point indicated that our missing men, based on telephone data, had gone east, leaving town, and then ultimately south on 75. This is in the opposite direction. So no, we never considered this as a search area.
And are the bodies, I mean, can you tell if there's any trauma in the sense of are they just lying there, or are they in a bag or anything that would denote somebody might have done, put them there?
I can't see any bags, but you have to understand they're partially submerged in the river. You can see portions of what appears to be a body. And again, I want to be clear. Based on my training and experience, it looks like these are human bodies. Until I get people out to them, I can't 100% confirm that.
Hey, thank you,
And
Kimberly.
part of the reason for that is everything is partially submerged and you can't see very much of it. It looks like they're clothed, but I can't confirm that. And I don't see any evidence of a plastic bag, or any other type of bag. But, I can't tell you definitively.
And since we haven't positively ID'd these bodies as our missing men, is the search continue for them, or is it suspended?
Well, I guess the best way to explain that is we would, as minimum, this is going to occupy a large portion of our time right now, which is going to slow us down. We're not stopping anything completely until we know that these men are found. But I have to dedicate resources to this. So some of my people that were involved in the review of video and whatnot will be doing this.
There had been speculation of reported sightings. Did we ever find out whether that was true or if they were really last seen and heard from on Sunday?
The only thing that I can confirm definitively is that Mark Chastain was last spoken to on the phone shortly after 5 p.m. on Sunday. 4, possibly as many as 6 individuals left the residence, but the time that's stated by the neighbor is off based on the phone data. Beyond that, I can't confirm anything. We have had many reports of sightings. We haven't been able to confirm any of them. I had one today that was in Monroe, Louisiana. So.
And when you say that they had left the residence, which residence had they left specifically?
There is a residence that is associated with Billy Chastain. He stayed there, but I don't know that he lived there full time. And it is on West 6th Street. They left that residence, presumably together. And that's all we know. Everything else, all the other information that we have that we can confirm is based on cell phone data. So I can tell you where Mark Chastain's cell phone went, but I can't tell you definitively whether he had it at the time.
And this is Deep Fork River?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said possibly 6 individuals maybe left that house. Do you have any idea who the other 2 might be?
I can't tell you for sure that there were 6, and if there were, I have no idea who the other 2 would be.
And aside from the bodies, any other items near these remains?
Not that I can see and identify, no. There's some debris out there that you expect to find on the riverbank, but, beer cans and things like that. But I can't tell you if any of it is related.
And is it close to a road or a bridge, or kind of out in the?
It is immediately adjacent to a bridge. The objects can be seen standing on the bridge.
Is there a diving team out there? I assume you're working pretty hard to preserve the evidence.
We have requested Oklahoma Highway Patrol's boat team to assist with recovery. I haven't been on scene since I sent the email out for this press conference, but I can tell you that based on what I saw out there, I don't think the river's deep enough to need a diver.
I was just wondering why did you notify the family when you aren't able to identify if there are even bodies out there?
The natural conclusion, once the information gets out on social media or announced to the news by the family, would be that their loved ones have been found deceased. And I didn't want them to hear that from the news. I wanted them to hear it from me. And I've made it clear to them that I cannot tell them definitively whether this is their loved ones.
How long long will teams be out there working on this, you think?
Until we're finished, I'd say sometime tomorrow.
And based on the locations of the remains, does it appear that they were thrown into the river from the bridge?
Anything I provide you with that would be pure speculation. I don't know.
And when you say until tomorrow, are they gonna be working through the night?
That decision will be made sometime tonight, and I think
takes
it will
a lot of
probably
Okmulgee,
depend on
George.
how much available light and how much artificial light we can get to where we need it. Some of the objects are very close to the bridge, which should be not much of a challenge to get light to it. Others are further away, and the terrain's fairly rugged. That I think that'd be pretty difficult. So if we have to suspend the recovery effort tonight, we will keep security personnel out there until tomorrow where we can restart the process.
When you mentioned that now you guys have a reason to believe there may be foul play, what leads you to believe that?
Well, the fact that I believe there are bodies in the river is the only reason at this point. Once I know the identity of those bodies, I'll have you a firmer answer.
Is that bridge closed off, or what's the access to the area?
The road is closed for a long distance in both directions.
This has been a really long week for you guys. Can you just speak to what this development means for your department in this case?
Well, I'd like to say it means rest, but I think that's going to be a while. It does come with, I don't want to say relief, but it takes some of the pressure of finding these men, assuming that that's who we're talking about, off of us, so we can shift gears and find out what happened to them. If it's not them, then we're right back to square one, and we'll be operating 2 investigations at the same time.
Once the bodies are pulled from the river, how long do you think it would take the medical examiner to give you guys an ID?
I would defer to the medical examiner's office with that question, but I think that logically that will depend on what their workload is like and how difficult the process is going to be.
Well, hey, folks, I don't know what happened there. Looks like we lost a little bit. Just let me know if you're still hearing me out there. And I'm going to try to bring that back in and figure out where we lost things. Actually, we were at the end of the Chiefs discussion anyway. So I'm going to just try to bring this in and. Well, 4 men left on bicycles Sunday. And this saves you from a shameless plug for Truth Finder, because we're going to go back and start it about right
Get
here.
it, and then enter Evil 10 at checkout. We're an affiliate, which means we get a small
let me know if you can see the
enough
video
to buy
on
a
this
small
too as
Diet
well,
Dr.
folks. I just
Pepper,
need some
but you can cancel
feedback
at
to
any
make
time.
sure you're
Thanks for
getting
listening
everything.
today.
Chief Joe Prentice confirmed that the officers had responded to and discovered what appeared to be human remains in the river. He indicated he didn't know if those were the 4 men that were reported missing. Well, today, the chief released information that confirmed the bodies were of 4 men. Still wouldn't say that it was the 4 missing men, and he said that he's going to wait until the medical examiner completes identification to determine who they were. Now, folks, that today was actually yesterday. I just have been so darn busy down here in Dallas that I didn't get this thing out last night when I wanted to. Plus, the serial killer case popped, and I wanted to chat with you about that. So let's kind of pick back up into this thing. And I love the comments that I'm reading, and I love the fact that for some of you this is brand new. For others, this case is something you've been looking at. But let's carry on for a few minutes and see what we have next here. Now, he did let the family know before the press conference last night and today about the news so that they didn't hear it through the media.
But pay close attention to this news clip where the chief left in what to me was an interesting statement. Perhaps has me now thinking that this case is moving toward a homicide rather than a freak accident. Let's listen in.
Okmulgee families are waiting to see if police discovered their loved ones after human remains were found this afternoon. Within just the last 5 minutes, Okmulgee's police chief told us they did recover the body of 4 men. It happened in the search for those 4 men who've been missing since Sunday. Investigators say those remains were found near Deep Fork River. 2 News Oklahoma's Jeanette Quesada has the latest.
Police say it's too early to know if these are the 4 missing men, but they have notified their families in case it turns out to be their loved ones.
I hope this ain't them, but it's looking like it might be.
Benny Harjo is a friend of 4 men who disappeared Sunday night. He pulled up to where police had Sharp Road blocked off after Friday afternoon's discovery.
I would call evidence that there's potentially foul play involved.
Okmulgee Police Chief Joe Prenton says just before 2 Friday afternoon, someone reported a mysterious item in the area near the bridge over Deep Fork River.
Officers responded and discovered what appears to be multiple human remains in the river.
Police blocked off the road leading to that bridge as investigators worked on gathering more evidence. Police say multiple agencies are working day and night to recover and process those remains and find out who they belong to.
We don't know that this is our missing men yet.
Mark Chastain, Billy Chastain, Mike Sparks, and Alex Stevens have been missing since Sunday. Police notified their families in case the remains belong to the missing men. Chief Prentice says it's too early in the investigation to know right now.
If these are your loved ones, all we're doing is switching focus, and we're going to work just as hard to find out what happened to them as we did trying to find them.
Family, friends, investigators, and the community want to know what happened with these 4 men. And if it is them who were found in the river today, they want to know how they got there. It's a story that we will continue following for you as more information comes to light in the coming days. In Okmulgee, Jeanette Quesada, 2 News Oklahoma.
And again, just before 10 o'clock tonight, Okmulgee's police chief tells us that recovery process is finished. They told us that they found 4 male bodies that they recovered from the river. They tell us those bodies will be taken to the medical examiner's office right here in Tulsa. The medical examiner will make the final determination if those bodies belong to those 4 missing men.
I'm hoping that somebody out there knows these men personally, or you're from town there and you can provide some information about their use of bicycles, whether they had vehicles, the potential reason they might be visiting the salvage yard. Heck, one of them may work there, may work at both of them as a tow truck driver or something. And what the potential reason might be for that. Again, Sunday night or early Monday morning, these guys disappeared. And then I'd love to know your theories on why they were clear over by that second scrapyard, which again was several miles to the southeast of the location where they were recovered. How did they end up in that river? Now I want to just retrace the case using a map for a moment, just to kind of put everything into context. This red star indicates the location where the bodies were recovered. Now I want to go back in time though. We're going to go 3 miles to the north and to the last place that they were physically seen by family members leaving as they jumped on their bicycles and headed off on that Sunday night. Again, we know that they went to a salvage yard just north of that last known location, and it's there that they apparently spent some time, again, because it left some forensic evidence. Additionally, we know that they went to the east near a YMCA where they were spotted, and from there, further east to US 75, where they were seen turning south and heading down toward Murphy's gas station. Now, I don't know if they got CCTV at the gas station. I hope they did. That's going to give them a little more insight into what's going on. They continued south to another salvage yard. Again, this is the area where they got that last forensic ping off of their phones. So, as much as we know is that they made it that far, or at least their mobile device made it that far. Now, I've tried to plot out a couple of routes in which they could conceivably get from that last known location to the southeast back over to the river where their bodies were recovered. And looking at aerial imagery, I want to make a point here that there happens to be this old road that runs along here. Perhaps it's an old rail bed. It might even be something as simple as a property line that was cut for fencing or a utility area that was carved out. But there's something here that makes me wonder if it's possible they may have been on mountain bikes and may have been driving down that road as fast as they could in the dark, not really aware of every place that they were, and like lemmings followed one after another off and into the lake or into the river. I'll leave it to you to determine if you think that's even feasible. But got to throw it out as a theory. It's more likely to me, though, that these four fell victim of foul play, perhaps somewhere along the line of where they were last seen on that last forensic ping. I believe that there something terrible happened, and in an effort to get rid of these men's bodies, they were taken and dumped in the river, perhaps even thrown off the very bridge in which they were found by. And this is why it's so important that we understand things like what the water flow is in the creek there. Now, the police chief said that he didn't think it was deep enough for divers, so it obviously this late in the year is very low. Is there water flow, or is it pretty slow moving or even stagnant? That's going to tell us how far the bodies might be displaced from the place they entered the water and where they were eventually discovered. Now, I talk a lot about the different crime scenes in a case, so this is a perfect time for us to step back into the classroom for a minute and examine those crime scenes based on the small amount of information that we have. Then we can begin to theorize based on facts that start to unfold. Again, there are three crime scenes: the initial contact site, the crime scene where the actual crime occurs, and there can be the disposal site, the place in which, in this case, the bodies are found. So with that in mind, I want to propose with a theory, and I'm looking forward to having more information come out from police as they complete their investigation. And I want to preface my comments by saying I'm having a really hard time believing this is an accidental death. So let's assume that the men have come into that initial contact site with somebody who caused them harm, I think over where that ping occurred. In this case, it probably would be the same location that might end up being the crime scene or the place in which their lives are terminated. Now, I'm really going out on a limb here because I haven't heard anything to suggest how these men died. I'm just looking at the circumstances and coming up with a theory. It's a theory based on the environment and the situation. Now, again, I don't want to in any way paint these men in a negative light. I don't know them. I don't know their background. They simply might have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, or it simply could have been an accident. But that said, if in fact they were murdered, it appears to me that the offender or offenders, once that murder occurred, has a problem on their hands. They got to clean up and dispose of this mess they've created for themselves. At this point, they often become disorganized. So they could have even just as simply as anything else loaded them into a vehicle and driven them over to that river and disposed of their bodies, only to be found a few days later by a passerby. Now again, folks, this is a theory based on very limited facts. And I'm saying this while I'm cautioning myself. I always say it's and quote Sir Sherlock Holmes, it's a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Now that said, I'm not trying to twist any facts here to fit what my theory is. I'm just telling you this is the theory I have based on the facts that I have at this point. And I really look forward to more facts coming out and this case further unfolding so that I can continue to adjust my belief of what I think happened in this particular crime. So that leaves me with a question for each of you. What do you think happened in this case? I mean, I'm going to be looking for your answers down below, and I hope you'll take time to respond to each other. And folks, thanks for supporting me here at Profiling Evil. I hope that you're hitting that like and subscribe button. And for those of you who support us through channel memberships, thank you, thank you. For those who can't afford it, no sweat, folks. I love having you subscribe, and I love having
All right,
you
I'm going to
comment.
drop this off now, folks. That was actually something that I had prepared ahead of time, thinking I was just going to run a video. So now let's get to some of your comments, because I am really intrigued. I'm seeing a lot of things that I think coincide with my thoughts. I want to make mention that the chief at one point said very clearly they had not recovered a bike from the river. Someone in the chat said that they thought maybe one of the bikes was recovered. I don't know if you were insinuating in the river or somewhere else, but anyway, it's kind of interesting. And I don't know if you caught it in the press conference or in the news clip after the press conference. Once they found the bodies, the chief, I think, kind of slipped a little bit, and he kind of suggested that there's evidence to point toward homicide. Now, common sense points toward homicide, but it'll be interesting to see what your thoughts are on that. And I'm looking into this. I mean, a lot of you are expressing what Paula is. They met foul play. Oklahoma's been having a drought and not much water in the river. Yeah, and the chief actually did say the water wasn't deep enough for divers, and so that part they've covered. I've not heard cause of death, so we'll have to think about that. And for those of you who live in the area, if anyone knows this, I would be really interested in what that road was that was running alongside the highway there, or the back road. There's the paved road, and then you saw where I drew the off-road piece. Is that a power line that's been dug and run through there? Is it an old rail bed or an old road? That would be really interesting to know as well. But I think the important thing here, and the lesson for all of us, is again to think about these crime scenes in multiple locations and multiple stages. These guys, if this is a homicide, met the person or persons that murdered them somewhere in space and time. That's called the initial contact site in kind of profiling circles. Then you have the location where the crime scene occurs. And if they happen to be seen doing something and that was the initial contact site, and the person that killed them immediately reacted, let's say shot them or something, that initial contact site and the crime scene could be the same location. If they left the bodies there, there would be no disposal site really, because they haven't transported. Disposal is very unique, and it tells us a lot about the offender and the behavioral characteristics that are going on. And if in fact this happened somewhere near that second salvage yard near Schulter, then they had to be transported and dumped into that river to what we would call the disposal site. So anyway, let's see what a couple of you have to say here. Kay Coates is saying there were body parts found at the first salvage yard. Makes seem like they're not knowing what really happened. So that's interesting. I haven't heard that. Can you please send Kay a link that shows who is saying that and how that information's coming out? Again, you know how I am. I'm kind of like, let's see it in an official document before we all agree that it's true. But that's great. Thank you. Lena Acosta says, I honestly don't think this was an accident if the water is not that deep. 4 men to be killed. I would expect a weapon such as a gun used or something like that. Yeah, interesting. Now, the other thing I'd love, if there's anyone on that happens to be from the area, is an idea of how far that bank is from the road itself, from the bank, the dirt bank on the side of the road, to the water level. What's that distance? I tried to pull up some imagery, and I actually called up a satellite image from my friends at
Black Sky. In fact, while we're talking, I forgot to check and see if that's come in. I flew a satellite over yesterday to see if that area was any different. I'm just going to check and see if my satellite tasking got finished. So it doesn't look like, let's see. Oh, the satellite is flying over almost right now again, but I'll let y'all see what I'm looking at. I actually have access to a satellite array through my partner, my friends over at a company called Black Sky, which provides imagery around the globe from satellites. So let's see, you can see this now. I've got a tasking, it's set to expire for that area. Says I submitted it. Oh, so here's what happened is they didn't feel like they were getting a good image from the satellite, so they haven't snapped the photo yet. So we're out of luck there because that could have been awfully cool. So let me just drop that off. All right. Well, it's always cool when you can get the imagery from satellite, and I oftentimes do that. I end up most of the time forwarding it to the police department and sharing it with them because not many agencies have access to that. But anyway, okay, enough of that. We're gonna move on, and I want to hear what your thoughts are. Make sure you're responding down below. Make sure you're talking to each other. Let me know what you think happened. And folks, rather than just say there were only body parts in there or there were full bodies in there, if you can, attach something that you can use as collateral to back up your statements so that all of us are sharing information that is authoritative and that we can bank on. So now let's jump over and talk a little bit about some of the most recent updates in the last 12 hours on Wesley Brownlee, the suspect in the Stockton serial killer case. And again, Wesley Brownlee, please go back and watch the video from last night's live and a day or two before that when I laid out the entire case and my thoughts on the mapping side of it. But Brownlee is a 43-year-old guy from Stockton who was arrested for murdering 6 people. Now, one of those murders occurred like 454 days earlier than the first murder in July of 2022, where this guy really started ramping up. And as we talked about on the broadcast a few nights ago, and when I was on Web Sleuths with Tricia, I talked about the fact that it was time now for this guy to hit again based on the cadence that he had established in his killings. So now he's been arrested. In fact, law enforcement indicates that they received a tip, and following that tip, they were able to pull the suspect over after they observed behavior that they felt was consistent with hunting, and a term that serial predators use a lot. But now he's been charged with carrying a loaded firearm in a public place under special circumstance, a felony. So probably in the course of committing a crime is what that's saying. The second charge is carrying a concealed weapon in a vehicle, a felony. The one that really is important is they're charging him with felony murder, but I don't know how many counts because it only is showing one. But the DA, if you remember the press conference yesterday, was pushing really hard and saying, listen, we're going to be ready by Tuesday when we get to the arraignment that we have more charges to add. But in addition to murder, he also had a charge of a felon or an addict. And this one's interesting because I don't know, is this guy, does he have a a drug addiction for them to use the addict in possession of a firearm charge. And then finally, prohibited person in possession of a firearm. So why was he prohibited? And again, that's going to be more information that we're going to learn about as this thing comes out and we learn more. And remember, this is the cool part about the profiling process. Come up with some theories, but constantly evolve as new evidence comes forth, and this thing becomes a little clearer. Now, I'm going to play the portion of the press conference where the chief actually talks about Brownlee's apprehension, and then we're going to come back. And by the way, I cut it down. I got rid of all the everybody else pounding their chest and saying how great they are and thanking each other, and I got right down to just the chief talking, and then we'll come right back and cover the rest of this. So let's listen in.
Please remember, I can only provide limited information for the integrity of the investigation. Just because an arrest was made does not mean the investigation stops. We now have to have a successful prosecution for our victims and their families. For the last 2 days, I have met with our victims, their families. I can't go into our conversations, but our talks were very emotional. They want us to bring this person to justice. I'm honored to tell them and all of you that we have an all-star team of district attorneys and lead detectives who will bring justice for the families. The arrest happened in 2 parts. One was community tips, and the second was good old-fashioned police work. Based on tips coming to the department's Stockton Crime Stoppers, we were able to zero in on a possible suspect. Our surveillance team followed this person while he was driving. We watched his patterns and determined early this morning he was on a mission to kill. He was out hunting. He was stopped by our own team in the area of Village Green Drive and Winslow Avenue around 2 a.m. this morning. As officers made contact with him, he was wearing dark clothing and had a mask around his neck. He was also armed with a firearm when he was taken into custody. We are sure we stopped another killing. Arrested was Wesley Brownlee, 43, for homicide. The San Joaquin County District Attorney's Office will be reviewing this investigation and will file the appropriate charges. I want all you to know how seriously I take these types of investigations. This morning, when SWAT team was ordered to go out and to conduct a search warrant at Mr. Wesley's residence, I went with them. Now, I would also like to thank each of you here, the media. Thank you. The news coverage, thank you for the social media stories, and thank you for keeping the victims' memories alive during your coverage. You and our community also played a part in this. We still need more tips to come in. If anyone has information about Wesley and this investigation, please get those to our investigators.
Well, there you go. I mean, I hope you're okay with the fact that I cut out a lot of the other stuff that was in there. And I want to pause just long enough to just look at a couple of comments before I go on, because I want to talk about some of the background on this predator that we're starting to learn. So Northern California Cubs fan says, I think it was probably homicide, maybe the men. Oh, you're still talking, a lot of you, about the Okmulgee 4. So yeah, I'm going to move on, folks. Sorry about that, and just cover up the rest of this on the Stockton case. So here's a couple more things that we've learned about this alleged killer's background that I thought you might like to know. Number one, Brownlee, it's confirmed, is a longtime resident of Stockton. And if you saw last night, I actually went back and went through all of his ownership and last known addresses to kind of show the places he'd lived in the last 22 years. Now, he was arrested in Pinella Park, and that I wanted to just pop up on the screen to maybe help you kind of envision that area, my map from yesterday with the arrest location on there. So let me pop that up and make sure that, yep, it's there on the screen. Okay, so here is the location where Brownlee was arrested. And the thing that's kind of interesting here is, again, if you remember yesterday, we kind of walked through the order in which he was killing and the direction that he was going, and so this is kind of interesting because it still happened inside of that buffer that I had created. I don't know if you remember that buffer that I'd created where I felt like this offender worked, but let me put that on. Isn't this put location that I thought this predator would continue to work within? He's right out near the edge. Now, the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting as we kind of look at that, he was arrested right here on this corner by the park. I'm going to go in and kind of show you the area a little clearer. He was hunting in an area that was actually really close to where this bounder lives. In fact, his last known address was right here at this location. So he was hunting really close, but it's interesting because if you look at Jonathan Hernandez Rodriguez, when he was murdered, I found a time back in pre-2004 when the suspect lived right here. And then the address that police are saying he was living at is right here. So I don't know if you thought that's interesting, but I sure did. So I wanted to make sure that we talked about that. The other things that I wanted you to know is, again, we talked about the fact that he had just a couple of traffic citations, but the police revealed that he was involved in 4 other criminal cases, a DUI back in 2009. He was in some kind of a felony case, and I don't know what happened in 2017, but I suspect as we learn more about that, that's going to be the one that makes him a restricted person that shouldn't have possession of a firearm, and where we're going to see that other charge come in. He had a traffic case in 2021, and people have been putting up the image of that thing. It was a traffic thing. Now, the interesting thing will be if there were any murders that were happening around that location. And then the other one that I thought was interesting that all of a sudden is a little more intriguing to me is back in 2019 in Arizona, he had another traffic citation. So remember, we got 448 days that need to be accounted for where this predator didn't do anything that we know of in Stockton. Was he somewhere else? Which is interesting because still police can't answer the question of why Brownlee was silent for those 400 and I call it 48 days, actually 48 days. Yeah, that's about right. And then here's the biggie. And I want to just say it again because I just keep reading account after account after account. Police are saying it isn't connected to the duck walk killer in Chicago. So I guess we can keep saying, yeah, I think it is. But the experts who have examined this and by the way, the PhD doctor that's been helping me on this case that we provided information to the police department about this man's gait has also looked at the duck walk predator in Chicago and said it's not the same person. So if you're going to keep spinning that story, great, but there's nothing scientific that supports it at this point. And I don't know, I guess you just keep doing what you need to do. So that's kind of where we are. And then the next court date is going to be in 2 days, Tuesday at 1:30 in the afternoon, when we're going to hear the additional charges. We'll get more information, and maybe there'll be some statements made that we can bank on. So let's see. Profiling Evil. Are you able to tell us when his citation in Arizona was? Because I live in Arizona. No, I don't know anything about it. This is something I learned in looking at some things
through the Sacramento Bee, I think it was, where I got that particular one. Oh, excuse me. So one of the questions, were there any public cameras in Stockton? There are a bunch of cameras in Stockton, and I'm sure that police are going through many of those and trying to figure out what's going on. So, and Molly, I would agree with you. There were probably more murders that we don't know about. And thanks, Fluffy, for joining up. People have been really providing some interesting thoughts in this, and I really enjoy reading those. And folks, I'm really grateful that y'all took time to jump on with us. Let's call it a night and not wear out our welcome. And I'll see you all soon at the next crime scene. Thanks again, everybody. Good night.